Konnichiwa! Welcome to the Final Corner podcast. And this episode we're going to be talking about the Japanese Grand Prix, or its full name, the MSC Cruises Japanese Grand Prix. And to discuss that is me, Tom, and also Nick, and Colin, who's feeling a bit under the weather. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
When I said a bit under the weather, that was a slight... it's a lot worse than that.
I've achieved a new frequency of voice. I didn't think my voice could go higher, but apparently it can.
That 80-year cigar smoking habit's coming back to bite you now, Colin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so slightly different sound this week. If you can understand Colin, do let us know on Twitter or X. And if not, sorry, that's just how it is. So it'll be me leading the charge this week, and I don't really know what I'm doing, so apologies in advance. But we'll start with the news roundup.
News update.
Just as we were recording, Alonso has signed a multi-year deal, which I was a little surprised because I thought he was playing the whole game of, I'll get Red Bull, Mercedes. And then Stroll came in and went, nope, 6 billion. That's my assumption.
Probably.
Not a fact.
I must say I'm surprised at the news, especially the timing of it, but it's good for the team. But yeah, I did expect him to hang on and put pressure at least on the other seats, but it's good for Aston Martin to have that stability ready, no worries about next year, unless they decide to get rid of Stroll, but I can't see that happening.
No. Now, this is an interesting move for many reasons. First, in my opinion, is it's actually made the driver market and the silly season a bit more dull.
Mm-hmm.
Because we had no driver changes at all last year. Then we've had the Hamilton bombshell. Okay, brilliant. The driver market's going to be fervent all through the year. Oh, no, Alonso's signed with Aston Martin. Now, another element that's important is that means he will be reunited with Honda, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know when the Honda engines are coming. Is it when the new rules come about? 26, maybe? Either way, what I loved about it, the initial release or press release was a blank piece of white paper that said, for immediate release, I am here to stay, Fernando Alonso. And then further details came up. That's kind of a cool way of doing it. Now, it's a multi-year, which says to me there are various different clauses that can be broken either way and pulled.
Oh, yes.
But he said that it's a lifetime project. This is the longest contract I've ever signed in my career, something that will keep me linked with Aston Martin for many, many years to come. So it doesn't necessarily mean he is driving in Formula One for the full duration of the contract. Or, reading between the lines, my interpretation of that is some sort of branding deal, stewardship deal, marketing thing. Did either of you see Alonso revealing the new Aston Martin Vantage where he was driving around just on a seat in a CGI video?
I did not.
Oh, it's terrible.
I thought that was just someone had made that as a meme on the internet.
Yeah, so this was the launch of the new Vantage road car, or revised Vantage road car. They had like a CGI video where Alonso's driving. He's got a steering wheel and a seat, and there's no car around him, and the wind's blowing through his hair, and then bit by bit the car sort of builds around him, but it looked very expensive and simultaneously a bit crap.
That sounds about right. But no, I didn't see that.
So if I was to be appearing in more videos like that, I would expect a rather fat paycheck.
Yes.
But it could be all sorts of things. It could be like road car testing, it could be GT program, it could be Le Mans, because they're privately entering hypercar class from next year, I think.
Yeah, it does sound like an ambassador type thing, the kind of thing that Schumacher and Ferrari had back in the day, and Hamilton with Mercedes, which I'm not sure how that will work now.
Well, it won't.
No.
The Schumacher thing is a great analogue, because Schumacher was testing the Enzo Ferrari and the FXX and all these road cars and turning up on Top Gear and stuff, helping promote Ferrari until he signed for Mercedes. So,
do you think anyone was actually that interested in him, though? Like, realistically, were Mercedes or Red Bull actually going to touch him?
This is a very good point, because I think Alonso's excellent, or his team are excellent at drumming up hype that perhaps maybe doesn't exist. So my opinion was, I don't think Red Bull were.
No.
I do think Mercedes might have entertained it.
Yeah, I think he would be, say, on a shortlist for Mercedes. Whether or not he was ever their top choice, I think it's doubtful, but they might have been.
The other thing I think it could mean that some other things have been signed that we don't know yet. it could be that he was heard that Sainz is close to signing this deal, so he's gone, right, I'll take the Aston one.
Possibly. Or it could just be that the money is so good, like you say, because of all these other things.
Well, Autosport reported that Adrian Newey has an offer, at least allegedly, from Aston Martin based on their sources, and I suspect that won't be cheap either. And who knows as well? It could be actually that's a done deal. It won't be announced for another year, and Alonso knows it, and he's gone, right, I'm in. But that's maybe jumping a bit too far at this point.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with those because you would never have said that Newey was going to leave Red Bull, but with all the hoo-ha that's gone around Red Bull in the last sort of 6 months to a year, I could see that he might just want to be out of it.
He's also 65, is he? He might just want to retire. How about that?
Possibly.
Anyway, we'll have to see. This, on the face of it, isn't that interesting. Then when you do a bit of digging, it's like, oh, he's back with Honda. It could be some branding thing. It could mean that he's driving somewhere else in 2026 or 7. It could be that he knows stuff that we don't know. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of 2026, there's all these regulations which we're not even seeing anything of yet, really. We don't know until they're actually in action. But Verstappen is unsure, and there's been some simulations that haven't been that positive, right?
Yeah, because at the moment, all they've been testing is the active air rear wings, not wheel wings. And on their own, when they are deployed, it's in a similar vein to DRS, but apparently I think it was 3 times more powerful.
Oh.
But the thing is with that is the offset between the balance when it activates means that even in a straight line, there's not enough downforce to keep the cars in a straight line. So in order for it to work, they'd have to have active aero on the front and rear at the same time, which is what they're going to test next.
I see.
Verstappen has suggested just get rid of all that and make the cars lighter.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
Smaller, lighter cars, please. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on. Andretti's got a building now, but
Yeah.
not a Formula 1 team.
Nope.
But a lot of employees, and so they're thinking of or considering F2 and F3 to further sort of bolster their cause.
Yes. I don't think it's one of those that's dependent on their entry to F1. If they get that, they will make an F2 and an F3 team. And it just feels like they're trying to put more and more things in place to say, actually, yeah, we do want to be here.
The building is a classic thing of any like startup business or company that wants to sort of show prowess and commitment and be like, we've got an office.
Yeah.
And I've seen that many times. It doesn't necessarily mean quite what you perhaps... It can be a facade, right?
Yeah, because they're not going to actually use this facility for the majority of their F1 business. That's going to happen in America.
Yeah.
So this is essentially, it's for some of the parts manufacturing and to have a base in Europe, but it would be essentially be where the F2 and F3 teams would be based out of.
I hope it's an affordable lease and the people who own the property, unless they bought it outright, have exit clauses and stuff because this might not be used. No. But I hope it is. And a nice picture of people stood outside of it. Brilliant. In a similar vein, I just want to bring up one small thing that Prema Racing, who runs in F2 and F3, Behrman and Antonelli this year, they have announced they're going to IndyCar as well.
Oh, yes, I did see something about that.
It has announced, I should say, get my grammar right. But I thought that was an interesting diversion. And isn't it perhaps telling that the barriers to entry to Formula 1 are perhaps too high if a leading team in F2 and F3 cannot enter?
Yeah, that's true. Although IndyCar is a much cheaper option, I believe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But this is a Formula 1 podcast. So without further ado, it's the MSC Cruises Japanese Grand Prix.
Konnichiwa. Just going to throw in random Japanese words.
So, Bar-san, I think that's what we would call you if you were Japanese. What do you think? What did you think of the race overall?
Well, just on Japan, my boss is going to Japan for a week next week.
Okay.
And I'm very, very jealous that he's going and I'm not. So
on a work thing or a holiday?
He's going to a factory visit. So.
Oh, well, I'm not jealous of that.
The only factory visits I get invited to are Livingston. So he's going to Tokyo. So
slight difference.
Yeah. I thought the race was fine. There was a lot of overtakes. I don't think many of them were just pure overtakes. But the overall weekend, it was decent.
And Saunders-san, what did you think?
Yeah, the same, pretty much. It was it had enough interest to keep me involved in it, which the more recent ones have not so much. but same problem. Front was all decided, but it was interesting. Who's going to finish 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th? That was all quite open until the end of the race.
Yes, especially there was some positions in that middle of the top 10, which are quite interesting towards the end. Did either of you wake up early to watch it?
No.
Unintentionally, yes.
Oh, no. It wasn't good enough for that, I didn't
No,
think.
I unintentionally woke up, so I watched the F1 and then the first night of WrestleMania. Because I was awake. I was awake anyway, so I was up at 5:30, so I just got up and watched the two of them back to back.
Was WrestleMania any good?
Night 2 was pretty good. That was
I don't know what that means, but
It's
fantastic.
over 2 nights now. So night 2 was really, really good.
Oh, okay. Well, I was trying to think of a segue between Formula 1 and wrestling. Can't.
I thought you
So
were going to
we'll-
try it.
Yeah, nah. So we'll just go. I was going to say, speaking of drama, but the race was dull. So, well, it was perfectly fine. Qualifying, let's start there. Actually, we shouldn't. We should start with free practice because Daniel Ricciardo was not in the car because Yuasa, a Japanese driver who's been racing in Formula 2 for a couple of years with some Red Bull backing, he drove the, what's it called this week? The Halifax cash-strapped RB.
Mm-hmm.
That was difficult to say. And I'd like to see more of this. Younger drivers in FP1. All for it.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is clearly a home nation sort of colloquial move to appease the fans that are there. And he was waving at the crowd, and he did a good job, and he didn't crash, unlike Logan Sargent. It also meant, though, that Ricciardo didn't have FP1, and he didn't have FP2 because it was raining. And that's some baked-in excuses there. But we'll touch upon Ricciardo later. And yes, Logan Sargent crashed the Williams, didn't he?
Yeah, he thought if he crashed it early, then Albon couldn't take it off him.
Deliberate strategy there. So that team's in the mire when it comes to repairs.
Yes.
Not good. And James Vowles has started talking like a robot. I don't understand what he's saying now in some of his quotes. Turning potential and all this. No, he locked up and went wide. Anyway, that's the race crash I'm talking about. The Sargent accident was very much what I do in the Formula 1 video game. We've all done that.
Did you see all the Sargent fans come out on Twitter and say, look at how terrible this car is, it can't even take the corner? Like, no. Understeering there is completely on the driver. It's nothing to do
Or the
with the
throttle
car.
too early, or, not enough steering lock. Yeah, 2 tyres on the grass at Dunlop. Never ends well. Simple as that. Then there's qualifying. Things happened. The result was mostly predictable. I thought Norris did well to get 3rd on the grid.
Yeah, definitely.
And speaking of Ricciardo, he was beaten by Tsunoda, but only by the tiniest of margins.
Yeah. What was it? Yeah, rough.
Oh, it's less than a tenth, half a tenth.
Yeah, half a tenth pretty much. Yeah, now that was a much better showing from Ricciardo, or a much worse showing from Tsunoda, but I think it was Ricciardo doing better.
It was, and he can say, well, I only had one practice session, and look at me.
So maybe that's what he needs in future.
Yes. Hulkenberg was pretty good again. And once again, we had to see Ocon celebrate getting to Q2, which is just sad. Very sad.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not sure what was going on with Zhou. He had technical issues all through the weekend, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah, he just kept saying that the car, there was no grip on the rear end. It just, every time he put his foot down, it just stepped out.
So he was out-qualified by Sargent. So that sort of covers the bottom end, other than we should also mention that Lance Stroll was 16th.
Yeah, that was not good.
Fernando Alonso, 5th.
Eddie Jordan's big prediction was that Stroll wouldn't be there next year.
Eddie Jordan said that. Okay, I actually do take that reasonably seriously. He has precedent of predicting the odd move rather well. Was this on his podcast?
It would be the one he does with DC, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I listened to a few of those episodes. It's quite good. I'll have to listen to that one. Give it a download. Plug someone else's podcast, but I can't remember the name of it, so not really. And I think we should also mention Leclerc being whooped by Sainz again.
Yeah, he said he had a bad quali, or a bad Q3, but yeah, he was completely behind. Was it 4 tenths? I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was only a 10th.
Oh, right,
for
yes.
for Q3.
Yeah,
It's just it was very close.
it was 4 positions, but yeah, it was only a 10th.
Yeah, because he's quicker than Sainz in Q1 for what it's worth.
Yeah.
But not much, because I know that's not. They don't have to push that hard in Q1.
Mm-hmm.
But he is slower in both Q2 and Q3. And I suppose it is only a 10th, but when I'll say Team Alonso, McLaren, and Mercedes are all on a similar pace,
Yeah.
you need to be ahead of that. And actually, credit where it's due, Perez was close to Verstappen this time. Was it around 600th? Something like that?
Yeah. It was under a 10th. And he hasn't been anywhere near that in the last year or so. So
As it transpired in the race, though, it was kind of a false dawn. And I think I had a feeling that as soon as Max came on the radio after he finished his qualifying lap, I could have done a better lap. You sort of think, he's got reserve. He's got reserves.
yes, I mean the classic commentators thing where they're going, well, Perez has been with Max all weekend. This will be a much different race for Max than he's had in the last
They
few
didn't say
races.
that, did they?
They did, and I'm thinking it's not. Unless Perez gets in front at the start, that's the end.
100%. And he had 2 attempts at that. I did see, we're jumping around a bit, but he had a wager with Horner that he had to put it on the front row in qualifying.
Oh, really?
But then he'd had a side bet with Bernie Ecclestone, so that he won the bet but had to give the money to Ecclestone.
Why is people still speaking to Bernie?
I don't know.
Yes.
And it was all sort of portrayed in a funny story of, good old Bernie.
Will Bernie have to declare that on his tax this year?
Well, maybe that's how he's earning some of the money back. Because it was not disclosed how much this bet was. Could have been a few million for all we know.
He doesn't seem to deal with anything less than millions.
Yes, before we get cancelled and sued, we should probably talk about lap 1, which starts with Yuki Tsunoda getting a slow start, people concertinaing up, and then Ricciardo and Albon crashing. Colin, how did you read that incident?
Lack of awareness from Ricardo. I initially thought he was moving over for the Aston, but when you see the onboard view from a car that's 2 or 3 back,
It's a Haas.
yeah, he has loads of room, and there's absolutely no need for him to drink right. He's got like half a car or more space, so I just think it's a lack of awareness. Bit of a racing incident. Lap 1. I don't think he was given a penalty, but I don't think he really deserved one. But it was just pretty shoddy.
I thought, based on the footage I saw afterwards of, I think it was Magnussen or Hülkenberg, if he did get a penalty, I wouldn't be that angry about it. But I'm agreeing. I'm not saying he's worthy of one. But if they gave one, it wouldn't be one that I'd be like, they don't know what they're talking about. When you see the Albon one, you're a bit like, ooh, a racing incident. When you see the one behind you, it's like, ooh, that's not ideal.
Yeah, it was a tricky one because there's also the argument that you could say that Albon shouldn't really put his car there because he was always he had nowhere to go. But, that's what you do when you're racing, so I'd agree. Racing incident.
If you look at Ocon's on board from the start, him and Gasly make contact.
Yeah.
We should mention that now. And Gasly lost points of aerodynamic aids there. He came on the radio. Actually, the team came on the radio. I think it was on the first lap and went, right, you've got damage. We're going to have to make do with this. A word to that effect, I'm paraphrasing. So they were very lucky to continue. But Ocon dives around inside, outside, and he actually kind of does go around it. He pulls off effectively what Albon was trying to do. But he's a little further along the track when he's alongside them. But it showed to me that move is possible on an opening lap. But everyone else has to play ball.
Yeah, I think it was more because Ricciardo even said he was looking at Stroll. So he wasn't aware of where Albon was.
And fair play, Stroll's not exactly predictable.
No. But yeah, it was just one of those things. Because it is also a very narrow track compared to some of the F1 tracks.
Of course. And for the good of the sport, I think you need a track where a mistake is the consequences is the wall, like a Logan Sargent, right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that does mean that chassis is also potentially damaged.
So that has been sent back to base again, hasn't it?
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be paying the bills at Williams.
No, but that means that Albon has now damaged 2 chassis because he took Logan Sargent's and kept it for Suzuka. So this is... well, I don't think it's properly damaged. It's more been gone back for checks and to make sure it's not.
It's a significant impact, but it's front on, basically straight on, isn't it, almost, as opposed to wiping off the front and the rear.
But I'm sure they'll have no problems fixing any damage. The only thing is that the money they're spending on that is money that can't go into upgrades or things later on in the year.
Spare chassis, etc., etc. Yep, so that's a shame. That team is struggling, especially when this year, as we keep saying, trying to get a point is harder than the past 2 years, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a red flag. That means, now correct me if I'm wrong here, this might be something I missed. The grid doesn't line up in the same orders from qualifying. It lines up from where they were on lap 1, right?
This was debated in commentary again, where they said unless you get to the end of the lap, they thought that it was going to be the starting order from the grid.
I thought it should be.
The FIA have said that the rules are if they get to the end of a timing line, which they had got past sector 1.
Yes, because I noticed Tsunoda started behind a Haas for the restart, and so Tsunoda's slow start was impacted for his grid position for the restart, and that was not something I appreciated until after the fact. I was thinking, why is he overtaking all these people? Why is that a good move? Surely he's just pitted. Oh no, actually this is for position. And it also meant tyre strategies were mixed up because you could switch off what you qualified from and put on whatever you want, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, indeed.
So you got noticed here the Mercedes went for hards. I believe some people in the midfield changed into it because I remember Magnussen's post-race interview where he was saying how, yeah, some other people were on a worse tyre strategy from us after qualifying, and then after that it was sort of neutralised. So, restart. Go again, and up the front it's exactly the same result in some respects because the Red Bulls disappear in flying formation.
Tsunoda gets about 10 places because he's suddenly up to 7th or 8th from like 17th.
But on a weird strategy because then he keeps having to fight back. Correct? Because later on in the race there's that amazing pit stop.
Yeah.
Perez makes a slight mistake a couple of laps down the line, but that's not an issue. First pit stops come on lap 12. And this is a whole thing of McLaren trying to undercut or cover off undercuts, isn't it? But then I think in the long run, tripping over themselves. Because it left Sainz at the end of the race with better tyres and he just drove past everybody.
Norris was fuming post-race because he didn't understand why they tried to cover off Russell.
Yes, that's right. They were trying to cover off Russell. And maybe Leclerc as well. I can't remember now. Yeah, I mean, after the race, benefit of hindsight, it doesn't look like the best strategy, but maybe in the heat of the moment, their simulation said it was. I don't know. Anyway, that begins the pit stop phase, the first phase. But before then, Lewis lets Russell by, and I'm thinking, Now, afterwards, apparently, he picked up some aero damage.
Yes. I'm trying to remember where from now.
It's against Leclerc on the first lap or something.
Yeah, that was it.
Didn't see it at the time, though.
But it was only when they pitted that they could put more front wing on.
That's what he was saying.
Came in.
Yeah.
But it was good to see in a way that he volunteered to let him pass as a team game. I know as an individual, it's not always that good, but if he knows that he's much slower, let him go and see what happens.
I think that was very noble and the right thing and very clever. When he let him by, though, it was kind of not the best position. It was coming into the final chicane, wasn't it? And I was a bit like, you compromise Russell's line. The Casio Triangle, as it's known, I think. Which I love that name.
Casio Triangle.
Casio Triangle.
That sounds like a watch I used to have in school.
Probably was. It's probably maybe a sponsorship deal. Zhou retires, but nobody cares.
Yep.
Then Yuki does a move around, and this is a lovely name, the anti-bank curve.
Yes, which no one has ever done before.
Which no one has ever done, except they have, like Eddie Irvine in 1997. But also people did it last year, I think, and the year before. That.
It was a nice move. I think mostly because he was the first one to do it of the day, but that was because of a tyre offset, and it was an Alpine.
Exactly, that's damaged. Mm-hmm. So fair play, cojones, etc., etc., etc. I wasn't too excited because in this modern era of Formula One, it's all about your tyre differential, isn't it? Would you agree, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, there was a move that I thought was brilliant at the time, which was Norris on Hamilton around the outside of 1 and 2. But then Lewis lost about 5 positions in 5 laps after that, so then you just realised, maybe it wasn't as good a move as you thought. But I think Stroll pulled that move off, the same as Tsunoda, a couple of times as well.
He did later on.
It always looks impressive there because you don't expect it in that section. But yeah, you're right. All the overtakes in this race were tyre.
The only reason they're able to go around the outside there is, for example, I think Stroll was on soft and the person he was overtaking was on at least a medium or hard. Speaking of which, Perez loves a move on 130R, but is it a move when it's just tyre differences, a Red Bull difference and a slipstream?
Yeah, it's just driving past. It's let's say in years gone by when that is a corner that you have to slow down for because you don't have the downforce to go around it, then that's a brilliant move. But in the era we're at, where you can just go through there flat out with no problems, that's a very easy pass.
Yeah, I mean, I was just watching the highlights, because I think the Formula 1 YouTube channel re-uploaded them, of the 2005 Japanese Grand Prix on the run-up to the race, which is where Kimi Raikkonen won from basically at the back of the grid. And Fernando Alonso's fighting through. And Alonso did an amazing move around the outside of Schumacher at 130R. And when they're on similar tyres, that was an amazing, amazing move.
Oh, yes. But also that was around the outside, whereas Perez was just passing on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's when the cars have less downforce, grooved tyres. They're on similar tyre wear. I think they're on different brands of tyres. And no hybrid KERS system. I mean, there's no DRS on that particular part of the circuit anyway. And it just was that was incredible. And then Raikkonen did the Fisichella around the outside of turn 1 towards the end, I think. And there's something about when you know that they're on a different tyre type, it takes away some of the skill for me. No, I'm not saying I can do it, by the way. These are the best drivers in the world. But
was that the overtake where Alonso says I knew that he had a wife and kids to go back to?
Wow. I don't know.
I've seen that quote floating about, and I think that was that move that it was in relation to. So he knew that he would back out when he tried it.
Okay, so as the race progresses, there are further moves. Carlos Sainz is making a couple of moves into Spoon, seemingly coming up on people, not diving at the hairpin, but they're running wide. In particular, Hamilton, I remember, where he misses an apex. Although I saw Russell running wide as well, and I was thinking maybe that's just the Mercedes line, sort of. They have to run around the outside of it. Not sure.
Yeah, I think there's an element of that anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, through 200R there, side by side, and Sainz dives into Spoon. And I did think that was quite cool. Agree?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was nice to see a move on a different part of the racetrack.
Yeah. Because we saw Perez having runs into that corner and he backed out of it.
Yeah, because the thing is, really, you don't need to make that move because you're going to get a nice toe down the next straight. But when you've got the advantage and you can make that move stick, then you can use that straight to pull away again.
Exactly, and Sainz was in this weird strategy where he was having to make moves in order to make it work, and so it was imperative that he got past sooner rather than later. Even with a toe, it's still the second part of Spoon. You're going to lose time through there. You might get dirty air. There's no guarantee that you're going to get the slipstream. And yeah, I'm sure he knows he'll be quicker than the Mercedes on a straight line anyway. So there's that. So that was a nice move. I think we should maybe skip to the midfield stuff and this pit stop. And this was a highlight of the race for me, which is a bit of a shame. But to see the Halifax app jump, what was it, like 3-4 cars?
Someone found Howard. I'm just wondering, since you're referencing Halifax, has someone found him?
No, I don't think so.
I was totally lost for a minute. I thought you'd seen a news clip about Howard. I'm thinking, who's Howard? But now I get it.
I think the last time I've ever seen him, I think he was on GB News. So, yeah, we'll leave it there.
Extra news.
We'll leave it there. I'm sorry. I'm finding out what he's been doing in recent years. Apparently, he was on, in March 2020, he was on the dating show First Dates.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
So, and then he was on it. He's partnered with a savings app called Nude.
Oh, he's gone for the whole some other banking app. Talk about typecast.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting. On you go.
People pit, and Yuki gets out ahead of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't see that live. We only caught the end of it on just the live broadcast.
Stroll hopped out alongside someone, but that was under investigation, but it was apparently fine. And Bottas came out last because his pit stop was very slow. And if you watch the onboard, they definitely had another issue with the front left.
Oh yeah, they still have that. They're not able to fix it because it's a supply from someone else, and it's to do with their lightweight wheel nuts that they got specially designed to help them do faster pit stops.
And it had the adverse effect.
To be fair, Bottas must have done really good because the issue in his first stop as well, it was about 8 or 9 seconds, and then he still had caught back up to the pack by the time the second stop came around, so he was clearly quick.
Yeah, his final stint wasn't that good, I don't think. But there was a moment where he was definitely on for that Yuki Tsunoda position at the end. Middle of the race, I thought, he could be on for 10th here. Which would have been a big result for them. As it is, nah.
Yeah, not ideal.
I don't see points for them anytime soon. So, overtake of the race for me was the pit stops. But that goes to show just how much of a team sport it is.
Oh, yeah, but it was a great pit stop from the, I'm even going to say it, the RB team.
Yeah, the RB, as we say now. I'm going to skip forward again. It was all, I don't know, those strategies. And basically, for me, the thing was, yes, I think different tyre compounds add to the racing, but this was a race where I just didn't really... I knew what was going on, but a lot of the overtakes were just because of different tyres and I didn't really care about them. Although there was this great move that Yuki did around the outside of Hulkenberg. The resurgent Hulkenberg.
Yeah, so the move itself wasn't spectacular because it was, once again, it was the tyre offset. But it's the fact that him and Stroll came up on Hulkenberg at the same time. And both were much quicker than Hulkenberg, but Yuki got that move done there. And you saw how much time he gained by getting past and Stroll not being able to follow at that point. And that quite possibly is what got him the point today. That day.
I agree. Although it's worth noting, I think, that Stroll massively faded at the end and Hulkenberg got him back, I think, on the final lap, which was off camera. Because I think he'd burned his soft stop. But I think you're right, because if Stroll gets ahead of Yuki, it changes the complexion of that final points paying position. And if he'd have made the move on Hulkenberg quick, like Yuki did. But he didn't. So, yeah, full marks with the crowd behind him. Another impressive drive from Tsunoda. Somehow think the Red Bull seat will not be his, even if he has the best season ever.
No, I especially think because Marco doesn't seem to like him, and he seems to have the final say at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Sainz goes long, correct?
Yes.
And then they pit, and you think, oh, well, he's got no real chance, maybe, I thought, of getting back onto the podium. But it turned out to be the right thing, the right move. I think, though, Norris made a slight mistake, which helped him, right?
I'm trying to remember now. Oh, yes, there was he did a lock-up, didn't he, into the hairpin, which brought Sainz closer to him quicker. That makes sense. So, it lost him a little bit of time.
Also, earlier, I think we briefly mentioned it, but let's touch upon the fact that Leclerc went wide and got his tyres green, which didn't help. It was, yeah. I think so. I agree. And I think Charles was disappointed. He thought he was on for a third, but then, of course, Sainz comes charging back.
Yeah.
And I was a little... I fully understand it's the right thing and I would do it, but it would have been nice to let them fight a bit, eh?
Yeah. Yes, you got to do what you're told at the moment.
So Sainz gets a well-deserved podium. And maybe Lando was thinking that he deserved it, but I don't think he had the ultimate pace to get it in the end, regardless of McLaren's strategy. I could be wrong there.
No, I agree with that, and not by much, but yeah, the Ferraris were just that little bit too quick over the race distance.
I thought Mercedes were quite anonymous, but towards the end, with a later pit stop than some others around him, Russell had a chance of some positions, and that provided some intrigue. Thank goodness for the final 3 laps or so.
Yeah, because it seemed like he lost everything up to that point and was nowhere. So the fact that he managed to bring it back was quite interesting. I mean, when was it he actually pitted? It was so it was about 15 laps to go, wasn't it? So yeah, he gave him that time to actually try and make that up.
But it was a tall order, I felt. But it provided some intrigue and interest, including clattering inside of Piastri. I thought it was kind of on that move.
I didn't see anything wrong with it. Neither did the stewards.
I didn't realise there was contact until they did the replay.
Yeah.
But I thought he sold Piastri the dummy. And then,
I thought it was a really nice move.
If he didn't have that bit of contact, I think Piastri would have had to let him go. But because of the contact, I think that gave Piastri the excuse to stay ahead.
Also, his front wing wasn't quite ahead of Piastri's at the apex. And if it was, even if there was contact, there would be an argument then. But I think because he was behind, that's just it. But I thought, wow, what a pioneering move, and having, he got him. He pulled his trousers down.
Yeah. I found it interesting, the wording of the stewards, when they said that Russell made a late move, but he made the corner and left enough room on the outside for Piastri to make the corner, but Piastri chose not to. Which made me think that maybe if Russell hadn't got past him, they might have considered him for gaining advantage, which I don't agree with, but that's what they might have.
Maybe. The challenge is it was 2 laps from the end, was it? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
And these decisions take too long, and
Yes.
I'm glad he got back past again, because then it wouldn't have to be discussed afterwards and argued.
Yes. And I'm just pleased that those sort of moves, it wasn't like, oh, he's gone for a late dive, we'll give him a penalty, when nothing came of it. And there was room on the outside. It wasn't much, but Piastri could have hung it out. It would have been risky, but he could have.
If you start investigating those sort of moves and giving penalties for those sort of moves, it really disencourages, is that a word? Discourages, there we go.
That's the one.
Discourages overtaking moves. Full stop.
Yeah.
And
That's
I don't
what we
want
want to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we want to see the overtaking moves, not the discouraging.
No, yeah, I'm with you. And that was superb. More of that, please. Because along with Yuki's timely move of Hulkenberg, let's say, and this, and Sainz at Spoon, those are the great moves. But this all the Perez moves, I just didn't care for at all. And then, also through this phase, this final period of the race, let's say, Alonso's got to sticky throttle again.
At least this was just obvious, and this is within the rules. It's not dangerous.
I don't mind it. It's gamesmanship.
No, this is fine. And this is just clever. Well, first, because he managed to open up almost a 2-second gap at one point, where Piastri and... Oh, yeah, when Piastri had that little mistake, I think it was. He then pulled out a little gap, but Alonso slowed down to let them catch up again. And my first thought then was, no, just go. You've got the gap now. Hold it. But they were that much quicker than him that it actually made sense for him to do that.
The risk is, though, it gives Piastri DRS.
Mm-hmm.
What if Piastri just goes past him?
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a risky thing, and I think more risky than just going when he had the gap.
Mm-hmm. But he managed it so well.
He did it perfectly, yeah. But it's almost that Alonso thing of, I need to be crafty about this. But fair play, it worked. It worked. But it was very obvious down backstretch, as it's called, the backstraight.
But I think the main problem is the fact that Russell was the quickest car. And so what Alonso doesn't want to happen is for Russell to pass Piastri, because Russell will easily pass Alonso, whereas Piastri is struggling to pass him.
Yep.
And that's where the cleverness comes in. Because by keeping Russell behind Piastri, it's much harder for any of them to overtake.
Yep. And it's very clever. And I liked the radio message from Mercedes to Russell and where they referenced, oh, it looks like our friend has got sticky throttle again. And that made me think, yeah, he's not getting a Mercedes contract anytime soon, is he? And then also, but Alonso is very clever in his post-race interviews and stuff where he's saying,
yeah,
yeah, we definitely have the fourth fifth quickest car or something, he says. And he's just hyping himself up, right? Clearly the contract talk was ongoing.
Then says something along the lines of, I don't want to say if I was slowing down because I don't want to get disqualified. Which was a stupid idea.
He's really hyping this whole thing up. And he knows deep down that he pretended to have a throttle problem.
Yes.
And then in the media, it's just like, oh, I'm not going back to it. Not going back to it. So that is basically the race. We've not even mentioned who won it, or who led every single lap, but it was Max Verstappen.
Oh, really?
Yes, back on form after the blip in Australia. And this is us locked in for the rest of the year, I think.
Yeah, even Toto said that, didn't he? He said no one's catching Max.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, to credit Alonso with a quote that was not filled with bravado or machismo, it was that there are 19 pre-season. He said there are 19 drivers on the grid who know they're not world champions, and that was very much correct.
Yeah, sadly it is, but you never know. Something may happen.
Plus, Checo's been on decent form as well, so it's 1, 2, 3 of the first 4 races.
It's still not good enough for me, though. I want Perez to actually challenge when he's not.
I don't think Red Bull want him to. Yeah.
No, Red Bull don't, and he's good enough to keep his job, so that's fine. I mean, they won the team's title last year, and if you discounted Perez's points, they would have still won the team's championship.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Which is unbelievable. Unprecedented almost. But so they're in a position where they don't need to have a good second driver, to the detriment of the sport. And that's why I think Carlos Sainz won't be there.
That and Verstappen Senior and Sainz Senior famously hate each other.
Oh, really? I'm on Team Sainz. Just going to put that one out there.
Yeah, they didn't get on during their time at Toro Rosso. So I think that's pretty much not going to happen.
No, I can only see Sainz going to Mercedes or Sauber/Audi. Or Saudi. No, that's definitely not right.
Difficult decision to make.
I think, to be honest, Sainz has been the star of the season for me. He's beaten Leclerc in every race, and he's won. He's only behind Leclerc because he missed a race.
Yeah, he's finished on the podium in every race he's competed in.
Yeah, which isn't bad, is it?
Nope. Especially when Charles Leclerc is your teammate and he's the favoured son of Ferrari and he's on the long-term contract. However, I do think, like I said last time, that might change as the year goes on. This is just a mere blip or slight dip for Charles. But hey, who'd have thought it? Driving for your career sometimes gives you some motivation. However, Red Bull, don't take that on as advice.
Well, that is the theory that I've heard online. I don't know what the truth is to it again, but that Perez will only be given a 1-year contract even if he gets another one.
Allegedly, he's requested a multi-year deal, hasn't he?
Yes, but they've said no, keep him hungry. But they didn't work with Bottas. He worked for a year, and then he just slowly got slower and slower when he was at Mercedes. Because he felt under pressure all the time.
Yeah, because there comes a point, like now, this pressure seems to be working with Sainz, but that might be ephemeral if he doesn't get something signed soon. Because then you start cracking and overthinking things maybe, and not being as like the Mercedes Bottas scenario is you got Hamilton locked down.
Yeah.
And so then it just must feel like as a driver, well, they really favour him.
Yeah.
With Perez, I think he knows though that they favour him. So it is slightly different. He knows that he's not expected to win the title. Whereas at the start of every season, Bottas was like, "Yep, this is the year," like David Coulthard. Yeah.
He is the Finnish Coulthard.
Yes. Yep.
Well, Sainz has been in the media this week saying he hopes that the driver market essentially will speed up because he wants something signed as soon as possible.
Yeah,
whereas Red Bull have said there's no rush, but I think they know they're going to reappoint Perez. So as you say, there is only 2 seats really that are opening up unless something mad were to happen at McLaren. Which
I don't think so.
The only other change I can see happening is Ricciardo gets dropped, Lawson comes in, does brilliant, and gets the Red Bull drive. But that's a lot of
mid-season. Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah,
The F1 TV director's been quite harsh on Ricardo because every time something goes wrong, he just cuts to Liam Lawson in the garage. It's like, I was all for giving Ricardo another go.
Same.
But Lawson was outstanding last year, and I thought he should have been in one of those cars.
Uh-huh.
So he's got, let's be honest, he's probably got 3 or 4 races left before they start taking a view on dropping him.
But I don't like the drop in mid-season.
No.
Even when it's an older driver, but especially for a younger one.
Yeah, I mean, well, he had no chance in Japan because he was out in the first lap through his own fault, admittedly, but he had no chance to make any positions up in that race. So you need to have that time to get used to a car and a team. So he's got to have at least 2/3 of a season in my eye, if not a whole season.
Yes, he does have something coming for the next race, which is a new chassis.
Yes, that's true.
Now, he's alluded to in the press that he thinks there's some weirdness with the car, let's say. And I believe he's been campaigning for a new chassis. Now, it's nothing to do with the accident. It was already planned anyway.
Yes.
So now we'll really, like, if they give him a new chassis, then, and after 2 races he's still been beaten by Yuki, that's when the cracks started appearing. I think now it's fine. Now it's start of the year, it's Yuki in Japan, etc., etc. Although he was in Australia, and that didn't really help him, did it?
No.
Well, China might give Ricardo a bit of an advantage because he's raced there in F1 previously, whereas Yuki
That's
never
true.
has.
Eons ago, though.
It has been 5 years. But if he's looking for any morsel of motivation or advantage, that might be something for him.
Yeah. That is a segue perhaps into the next race, which is... Oh, it's back-to-back. So is that next weekend? It's very soon. We've got a weekend off. And we're at China for the first time in, like I said, 5 years. Since pandemic, basically. For the Lenovo Chinese Grand Prix. And I hope it's wet, because I think that'll be interesting. Or foggy, or both.
Yeah. I'm also wondering how big the bumps will be on the back straight, because they were quite bad if I remember before. Because is this the track that was subsiding? Or am I thinking of a different track?
It might be. I mean, Circuit of the Americas has had a lot of issues with that over the years. But this might... Yeah, fascinating. Let's find out in a matter of days and see what condition this venue is in.
It's also a sprint weekend.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes, so that means... I don't know about timings, but certainly what I like about a sprint weekend is Friday qualifying.
Yeah.
8:30 in the morning for Friday sprint qualifying. The sprint race is in at 4 a.m. on the Saturday. Qualifying for the main race is in at 8 a.m. and then on race starting Sunday is 8 a.m. as well, UK time.
Yeah, the only problem I've got with China as a racetrack is that massive straight, because that was great in the era before DRS. But now it's just everyone waits for the straight and then passes on that.
I could be wrong, but isn't the DRS activation like halfway down to try and mitigate that?
Yes, but it's always been too far. You know, they need to basically either not use the DRS on that straight and have it somewhere else, or right at the back.
I'm just hoping that someone runs into the side of Max at turn 1. It's one of those
Yeah.
corners where you could.
I'm afraid Danny Kvyat is not on the grid anymore.
No, but there are others who can take that role.
The slightly frustrating thing at the minute is that the Red Bulls get an amazing launch as well.
Yeah.
So it's not even like a Ferrari can nip down to turn 1 first.
There was one other thing that I found interesting at Japan as well that I wanted to mention was when Logan Sargent went off, and just the state of the car when he reversed back onto the... You know, like he'd just done a rally in it. That was interesting.
When he went off at Degner too.
Well, slightly related fun fact that Williams designed and engineered the Metro 6R4 Group B rally car in the 80s.
I love that car.
Yes, apologies. I completely missed Logan Sargent driving off on his own
Well,
And
that's understandable.
in the race. But he did reverse back on in front of some people, didn't he?
It wasn't too bad, though, because the yellow flags were out. He reversed on slowly. But it was quite good in a way that he managed to keep the car running. Obviously, it's not good that he got it there.
No, and this is where James Vowles was talking about. The turning potential was there, but he didn't maximise it. AKA, he missed the corner.
Yeah, a.k.a. he's crap. At least in that point.
I do like the fact that he defends him in the press, though, because there'll be nothing.
Yes.
You know, Flavio Briatore wouldn't have done that.
No, totally.
A little thing on China I was surprised about. Who holds the lap record and from when?
Is it Michael Schumacher from 2006?
Close.
I would say, is it someone weird like Jensen?
No, it is Michael Schumacher, and it's from the,
Ah,
it's from the very first Chinese Grand Prix in 2004.
wow.
And no one's touched that record in 20 years.
Because of that straight, probably. Because that year, that car was a rocket ship in a straight line.
I've sort of blanked out some of the Schumacher dominant years. I need to go back. I know, Colin, you've been watching the old season reviews, right?
I just want 2011 and 2012 back.
Yeah, I need to rewatch those. But and it was on BBC as well. Ah, those were the days. Right, and on that somber tone, let's wrap this one up. So we'll be back with the Chinese Grand Prix, but also at some point in the next couple of weeks, listen out, subscribe, put the notifications on, because it'll be our fated, venerated BTCC season preview. And we have got not a clue what half the grid looks like at the minute, even though we're just days away from the season start. So it'll be a fascinating one. So stay tuned. And I'm also reading Nicholas Hamilton's book, so we'll have, dare I promise, a review? Well, we might mention it in the BTCC preview episode, if it's any good. I might read some excerpts like I did with the Gunter Steiner one. And final point on him. He is the Miami Grand Prix totem, isn't he? Like some sort of father figure.
I think it sounds like he's just stood inside that fake marina like a totem pole.
Yeah. He might be on that on one of those boats. But you can go see him live in the UK later in the year, and I'm semi-tempted.
I think 2 of them have sold out already.
Oh, no, I've missed it.
But I think they're doing a live stream of the shows as well.
But you have to, I'm not paying for a live stream. I'll pay to be there. I won't pay for the live stream. That's my opinion. Okie dokes. Right. Bye. Not waking up for that.
No.